I'm joined now by Mehdi Hasan, the founder and editor-in-chief at Zatteo. Mehdi, great to have you back on set. I know you've been listening to both my interview with Ambassador Huckabee and with the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. They put a lot on the record there in terms of their responses to all the criticism that's been coming. What was your response, first of all, to the interview with Ambassador Huckabee?
Tonight's clip is one of those moments that stops the political world in its tracks. Because what you're about to see is Mehdi Hasan doing what he does best, cutting straight through the noise and confronting power head-on. And this time, his focus lands on Ambassador Mike Huckabee, the United States' top representative to Israel. And let's just say the exchange gets intense. Hasan doesn't just challenge Huckabee. He pulls the curtain back on Netanyahu, Donald Trump, and key figures inside Netanyahu's inner circle, exposing the political ecosystem that keeps this entire situation spinning. Before we dive into the full story, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Now, as usual, we're going to roll the clip exactly as it happened, no edits, no filters, and then I'll break down the bigger picture, point by point. Trust me, there's a lot to unpack here.
I'm joined now by Mehdi Hasan, the founder and editor-in-chief at Zatteo. Mehdi, great to have you back on set. I know you've been listening to both my interview with Ambassador Huckabee and with the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. They put a lot on the record there in terms of their responses to all the criticism that's been coming. What was your response, first of all, to the interview with Ambassador Huckabee?
Well, he said a lot. I think he spoke to him for nearly an hour. A lot of things that weren't true. One thing that stood out to me was when he said he spent as much time with Netanyahu as he spent with his own wife, which explains probably a great deal why the Trump administration is so pro-Netanyahu and all in on everything Netanyahu's doing. One name you and him didn't really mention was Donald Trump. Trump has given Netanyahu, as we know, the green light to do the ethnic cleansing, to do the starvation, to do the killing. He recently said it's up to Israel to do whatever they want. But Mike Huckabee is a man who, just for your viewers watching some context, this is a man who said there's no such thing as a Palestinian. Says there's no such thing as the West Bank, says there's no such thing as a settlement, says there's no such thing as an occupation. He takes a very racist, dehumanizing view of Palestinians. He is a Christian nationalist, Christian Zionist who supports Israel for theological reasons. And in that interview with you, I just want to pick up a few things very quickly. The number of barefaced lies the ambassador told. He said multiple times Hamas is stealing the aid. As you pointed out, the New York Times spoke to multiple Israeli officials who say there is no evidence of systematic stealing of aid by Hamas. In fact, USAID, the US government's own aid department, did a study showing Hamas is not stealing the aid. The European Union did a study showing Hamas is not stealing the aid. The aid is being stolen. It's being stolen by gangs who are linked to Israel. So he's lying when he talks about Hamas stealing the aid. I was amazed to see him talk about beheaded babies and babies burned in ovens, which, as you know, Piers, because you got caught in that early on, was absolute bullshit put out by the Israelis. It's a complete lie. Not only did he lie about babies being burned in ovens, an ambassador of the United States at this point, 22 months later, telling that debunked hoax. He even claimed that it was done on video, which is not true. Show us the video. It doesn't exist. He also lied about the Israelis giving warnings to people before they bomb them. Every human rights group in the world says that's absolute BS. The Baka Cafe in Gaza City was bombed just last month. 30 people killed. A seaside cafe where they're having a children's birthday party. A boxer was killed. A sports star was killed. Children were killed. No warning given. They dropped a 500-pound bomb on a crowded seaside cafe. And then, of course, he lied about Anas al-Sharif and his crew. He said that the evidence points to them being Hamas. As you pointed out, no one who's looked at any of the evidence provided by Israel says that's evidence of Hamas. All he had was that, he was spotted taking a picture with the leadership of Hamas. So if you stand next to an accused terrorist or someone on the American terrorist watch list, that makes you a target, because I would point out Mike Pompeo is in a picture standing next to the Taliban. Donald Trump is in a recent picture standing next to the former leader of Al-Qaeda in Syria. Is that what we're now classifying as a justification for killing someone?
A lot to unpack there. I think one of the more interesting things that's come out in the last 24 hours are the words, once again, of the finance minister, Bezalel Smotrich, saying that his plan, as a direct quote, His plan is for large parts of Gaza to remain under our control and sovereignty, and we can settle them. And that this has been, I know it's been a fear that you have expressed from day one of this, after October the 7th, that actually Israel and its hard right government ministers would move to try and take over Gaza and indeed the West Bank. You know, when you hear people like Smotrich, it's very hard to dispute that's exactly what he wants to do.
It's very hard to dispute that this is a genocide and this is ethnic cleansing. I mean, they have said this on the record time and time again. US officials can come and dress this all up and talk about Hamas, but they've made it clear it's not about Hamas. It's about making Gaza Jewish again. These are their words. As you mentioned, Smotrich has said this. Ben Gvir has said this. Eliyahu, the heritage minister, just said recently, we're wiping out Gaza. We're going to make it Jewish again. Everyone's going to have to leave. Donald Trump himself, by the way, Mike Huckabee's boss, has said everyone has to leave and they can't come back, is what he said to Fox in one interview. Huckabee, as I mentioned, is a Christian Zionist. He is a hardcore evangelical who, if you had asked him about that, would probably support that stuff. I mean, his worldview, messianic worldview, is based on all of the Jews coming together in the Holy Land, taking all the land, and then Jesus comes back. I mean, that's not something they hide. In fact, Huckabee, Piers, was at an illegal West Bank settlement, Shiloh, in May, and he visited 5 heifers, 5 red cows, sent from Texas, I believe, which I believe is part of the prediction, the prophecy for rebuilding the temple and bringing back the Jewish Messiah. I mean, this is the kind of circles he moves in. These are the kind of beliefs and views he shares. And it's very worrying that Donald Trump, we know, Piers, you and I, is not a religious man. He's not a big Christian, but he's filled his administration with these kind of messianic folks, these Christian evangelicals who say Israel right or wrong. You've got the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, just went to Israel a few days ago, I think, and he visited an illegal West Bank settlement. You didn't get a chance to talk about the West Bank with Huckabee, which he believes is not occupied. You have 2 American citizens, Piers, killed in the West Bank in the last 30 days by settlers. Mike Huckabee is the American ambassador to Israel, as he proudly told. He said, I'm America's ambassador to Israel. What's he done for them? They're American citizens. Isn't that the job of the US ambassador to Israel, to protect American citizens in that country or in occupied territories by that country?
Yeah, listen, I think the aggressive expansion of settlements in the West Bank is a crime. I made no pretense of that since they've been doing this throughout the last 2 years. What did you make of the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation spokesman interview? Because there's a lot of misinformation being thrown around about the UN and the way they operated the food. That, as I said to the ambassador, and as you rightly picked up on, the New York Times did an extensive report which said that there was no evidence of systematic theft by Hamas. However, I'm under no illusion that, of course, Hamas would probably try and take as much as it could get its hands on, and I would assume they've been doing that reasonably regularly. There was just no evidence of a systematic thieving of all the UN food. Do you think the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation is a force for good in Gaza because it's getting some food to Gazans, or do you think it's not a force for good?
So in terms of getting food to Gazans, let's just debunk something both the GHF guy and Huckabee said to you. They keep saying 110 million meals. That's since the end of May. We are in the beginning of August. When you do the math here in the US, you need, for 3 meals a day, right, for 2 million people, you need over 400 million meals in that time space. By the way, these are meals that have no water, no fuel. So you get the food, you can't cook them. How are you supposed to cook them? What are you supposed to drink with them? You don't get any water or fuel from the GHF. Just these prepackaged meals. And it's enough meals to cover, as they say, 110 million meals. But what you actually need are 400 million meals. So really, they've only provided a quarter of as much food as the people need, and without any water or fuel. So they're just selective cherry picking of stats without any context. In terms of your question, let me answer it directly. No, it's not a force for good. It is a force for evil. And that is not a word I use lightly, Piers. I'm not one of these people who throws around evil all the time. But what we have seen in the last few weeks at these GHF sites is evil. You are seeing people, hungry people, coming for food, starved by Israel. And then when they come to the sites that they're told to come to get the food, they are then shot at and killed, right? Killed, hundreds of them. And by the way, again, they keep saying, well, we don't know what happened, misinformation. Actually, no, The Guardian just did an investigation over the weekend. People can go read it. Based on 30 different videos, they've identified Israeli gunfire at Palestinians at these sites. We have Israeli soldiers telling Haaretz, we were told to fire on people at the aid sites. We have American contractors who told the Associated Press, we saw our colleagues opening fire, live ammunition on Palestinians. How evil do you have to be to starve people and then tell them to come get aid in the middle of a war zone. These GHF sites are in the middle of a war zone, and then shoot and kill them as they come to get the aid. I mean, that is, you think about Rwanda, you think about the Balkans, you think about the worst genocides in the last 50, 60, 70 years. This is up there with them, if not beyond. It's the most evil thing I have seen in my life in recent years.
As the clip wraps up, you can really feel why Mehdi Hasan stands out in the political landscape. He doesn't tiptoe, he doesn't sugarcoat, he lays out the facts and the contradictions with a level of clarity that makes it hard to look away. And honestly, that contrast becomes even sharper when you compare it to someone like Piers. Because let's be real, Piers Morgan has built a reputation for playing safely down the middle, especially when powerful figures on the right or officials from Israel are sitting across from him. The tone softens, the questions become gentler, and suddenly, the urgency disappears. But watch how differently he behaves when someone from the political left comes on, unless it's Mehdi Hasan. And that's because Piers knows exactly what would happen if he tried the usual tactics. Mehdi has challenged him publicly before, corrected him on air, and out-argued him in ways that left a mark. So Piers doesn't push as hard, because he knows it won't end well for him. And meanwhile, while all these media personalities navigate their comfort zones, the reality on the ground grows more disturbing by the day. With everything unfolding in Gaza, the scale of the destruction, the loss of life, the humanitarian crisis, it's honestly shocking to hear the calm, almost casual tone some analysts use when describing it. It feels disconnected from the human impact, as if the suffering can just be brushed aside with talking points. Then you look at Israel's actions in recent days, including the reported strikes in Qatar targeting Hamas negotiators, and it paints a picture of a state acting well beyond the boundaries of international norms. It's a pattern that looks less like strategic precision and more like a government that no longer believes it can be restrained by global law, diplomacy, or accountability. A government moving as though it answers only to itself. And that's what I find so striking. The sense that there are no breaks, no limits, no willingness to acknowledge the consequences. It's a level of confidence, or perhaps defiance, that raises serious questions about what comes next. But I want to hear from you. Drop your thoughts about this clip down in the comments. And while you're there, go ahead and hit the like button and subscribe. It helps more than you know. And I'll catch you in the next video.